Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. My name is Noor Basha, a Marketing Director at WinWire Technologies, and I'll be a moderator for today's webinar. As you know, today's topic for the session is how you can secure your organization with Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. So before we start the session, let me highlight a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end. We are recording this session and we'll be sharing you the presentation as well as the recording in the next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let me introduce you to today's session speaker, my colleague Jeff, who's the VP of Technology Solutions at WinWire Technologies. So Jeff brings over 28 years of experience in the IT industry with deep expertise in SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure. He is also a Microsoft Cloud Solution Architect specialist, helping Microsoft technical sales team as a part of the Microsoft Managed Partner Program. So with that, let me hand it over to Jeff. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Noor. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate folks taking the time out of their day or evening to join this webinar. A little bit about WinWire Technologies. We're an 11-year-old company with 7 offices around the globe. Over 450 consultants are part of WinWire today, and we span many different industries, work we've done with over 100 customers spanning those industries, and you can see some of the credentials and awards that we have there. But the bottom line about WinWire Technologies is, our mantra is that we help clients gain competitive edge through innovative software solutions, and that's really what we live by, and that's one of the first things we go in to talk to our clients about is how we can make them more competitive with the technology solutions. And some of the services that we have to offer, certainly Azure, data and AI is one of the real big areas, certainly an up-and-coming hot technology area. Application modernization, taking some of those old legacy applications, modernizing and moving them to the cloud, in particular moving those applications to platforms like Azure. Collaboration, and lastly, enterprise mobility is, again, an area of focus. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about, as Nora said, Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. So our agenda is, why protect the data? What are the drivers around that? An introduction to Advanced Threat Protection itself, and then we'll give a little demo, and certainly at the end, leave it open for some questions and answers. So why protect data? What's important about it? Let me start off by talking about a case study about a law firm that we've done some work with that was basically, it was an Office 365 consulting and security assessment. So one of the things about the customer is that they're currently using Lotus Notes, but they also have in place Office 2016 on-prem, utilizing SharePoint 2013, and from a mobile device management solution, they're using AirWatch. They use ADFS 3.0 for single sign-on, but they've purchased licenses for Office 365 to E3 SKU and 250 licenses for enterprise mobility and security. And they're very sensitive about when information can and should be stored in the cloud, and security is really, really one of the things that's very important to them. So they wanted to understand kind of how to use and take advantage of the full capabilities of Office 365 and Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and understand what the benefits are moving from Notes to Office 365. And you can see some of the other customer goals there. Then from a post-assessment opportunities, what we understood is really, we wanted to come in and kind of demonstrate the benefits of moving from Notes to 365, understand how tools like Azure Information Protection, Advanced Data Governance can help manage them, and certainly demonstrate and talk about what we're going to talk about today, how Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection can protect your email and Office 365 files and lastly, demonstrate how they can leverage some of the tools like Azure Active Directory and conditional access for kind of filtering or figuring out who can and cannot enter the system. So why are we talking about security? Security is a huge issue today. You can see it's not just an issue that is thought of anymore in IT. It's really bubbles all the way up to the CEO level and corporate level, where people begin to think about security. We hear every day in the news about data breaches, about different hacking kind of attempts, about malware that's out there. So it's really something that has over the past number of years really bubbled up to be a significant issue. And you can see some of the statistics here that there's about $4 million of the average cost of a data breach per incident to an organization, and 81% of those breaches involve somebody using a weak password or having their password or credentials stolen. There's over 300,000 new malware samples are created every day, and they're spread. So as fast as companies are moving to put up the guards to prevent some of these things, the people who are out there creating this malware and looking to do harm are moving just as quickly. So it's important that people stay on top of it. And 87% of senior managers have admitted to accidentally leaking business data, and that's whether it's business data sent out inadvertently through email, through a mobile device, etc. So you can see that it's some of these things here. And the bottom line is, look at that note at the bottom where cyber threats are a material risk to your business, and that's one of the things that we really want to emphasize, that if you're not careful, if you're not putting the proper safeguards in place, that you do run the risk of damage and harm, not only to individuals who may be affected, but to the business itself. So some of the things that we are seeing as the main challenges with regards to threat protection is first, exposure to advanced attacks. And as I talked about, the folks that are out there trying to do harm, trying to as we'll call them, the bad guys, they're working every day to try to get those to make that software to infiltrate, to get into companies, and so what we're doing is trying to make sure that exposure is limited. With the number of threats that are out there, sometimes the inability to detect malicious activity is a challenge that folks have, because they don't have the proper tools in place, or they're not doing it correctly, or not taking it as seriously as they should be. And then if something happens within an organization that they are attacked and there is some kind of breach or malware, how difficult it is for them to kind of go ahead and respond. Sometimes they don't have a plan in place or don't have those safeguards in place in order to properly respond to when a threat is actually come into the organization. So these are some of the challenges, again, that we are seeing out there in the marketplace. So there's different areas really where you have some vulnerabilities within your organization. Certainly with identity, having protecting your credentials, having somebody come in and, as we talked about, steal your credentials, or through brute force attacks, be able to figure out passwords. Applications and data certainly are exposed and vulnerable if proper precautions are not taken, as well as devices, whether it be a desktop, PC, a Mac, a tablet, a phone. There are definitely some vulnerabilities there that open those devices up for attack if not properly locked down. And within the infrastructure itself, not having proper safeguards, whether it be an on-prem system with not having properly configured firewalls, etc. All of these things show that there are vulnerabilities out there. And there's our little bad guy, and the bad guy is trying to look at each and every one of these as a way of getting into your organization and moving forward with attacks. For our purposes of discussion here, we're going to just really focus in on the applications and data portion, and that's really where we're going to dig in a little bit and talk about that Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. So one of the things that wanted to kind of point out here is when we're talking about how Microsoft is handling and how Microsoft is responding to these security threats and using tools such as Advanced Threat Protection and some of the other security tools that they have. They are building all the information, all the learning that they get from the various tools that are out there, from the various types of attacks that they're seeing, to build what they're calling a Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. And you can see some of the statistics within these little bubbles here in the security graph, where over 400 billion emails are analyzed. And obviously, with Office 365 and a lot of organizations running their email on Office 365, seeing some of those patterns, seeing some of those attacks coming through, a lot of those emails provides that kind of data to be able to do that. So over 750 million Azure user accounts, 18 plus billion web pages scanned using Bing, etc. So all these different aspects of where Microsoft has the visibility and has the ability to see kind of the data are going into building this intelligent security graph, which in turn takes that information and allows Microsoft to kind of apply some of those safeguards back into the products like Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. So how can the technology help you solve today's security challenges? By building upon the information to get in the security intelligence graph, Microsoft's approach is really three-pronged. It's basically to protect organizations from cyber attacks, it's to detect malicious activity, and it's have the ability to respond to threats quickly. So it's protect, detect, and respond. And with each of these, from protecting your organization from advanced cyber attacks, what you can do is protect your email and Office 365 productivity files. And with Advanced Threat Protection, you have the ability to stop malicious attachments, provide time-of-click protection against malicious links, and stop known email and Office 365 productivity file-based threats. The next one is being able to detect malicious activity in organizations. Visibility into malicious attacks in email files are different things, again, that you can do within Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. The ability to access messages and URL trace reports. Look at some of the other reports, such as determining, from the email attachments, being able to see what the email attachments are, if they are malicious or not. Gain visibility into some of the threats that are out there in the landscape right now, and determining who in the organization may be targeted if they're, if certain people are just not taking good care of the websites they go to, or seem to be frequently getting spam that has malicious links or malicious code in it. Being able to see who they are, and then have some specific campaigns around education and getting those folks working properly. Respond to the threats quickly. So with Advanced Threat Protection, you have the ability to respond to these malicious emails and Office 365 productivity files by, first removing any emails that are found to be malicious after they land in the user inbox. Intelligent filters, which update based on evolving cyber threats, the cyber threat landscape, and that's again one of the benefits of having such a broad tool such as the Microsoft Security Intelligence Graph, and the ability to remediate for real-time malicious emails and Office 365 productivity files. So let's talk a bit and dig a little bit down into Advanced Threat Protection. So from our perspective, we think that your success in today's world with all the cyber threats that are out there is to have a tool such as Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection, because basically it secures your entire Office 365 environment from some of today's most advanced and sophisticated threats. In different areas where Advanced Threat Protection protects you, certainly email, but the Office clients themselves on the desktop, files that you have and open up, if you are using the Office desktop client that comes part of your Office 365 subscription, Advanced Threat Protection moves its way down onto those as well. SharePoint Online has the ability to make sure that the files that are up there that you are sharing within Office 365 and SharePoint Online don't contain malicious code and you're not out there sharing bad stuff. Same thing with OneDrive for Business. Again, the files that you have out there and sharing with folks within your organization don't contain any kind of malicious code in there. And protection in Microsoft Teams. Information and attachments that's stored in Microsoft Teams, again, having that ability to have all those tools that you see here: email, Office clients, SharePoint Online, the OneDrive for Business, and Microsoft Teams supported, and being able to have advanced threat protection support those and provide that level of security. So how do you get Office 365 ATP? Well, ATP is included in Office 365 Enterprise E5, the E5 SKU, as well as Office 365 Education A5 and Microsoft 365 Business Edition. If you don't have those editions of Office 365 or Microsoft 365, you can add Advanced Threat Protection as a separate SKU. You can add those to any of the subscriptions that you see there: Exchange Online Plan 1, Plan 2 or Kiosk, Exchange Online Protection, Business, Enterprise E1, E3, F1, 365 A1 or A3. With each one of those, if you add on Advanced Threat Protection, that will be an additional $2 per user per month. So that is the add-on charge for Office 365 ATP. So again, to kind of reiterate what this slide is basically showing is the fact that that is included in the E5 SKUs. But if you wanted to add it on, again, it's an additional $2 per user per month if any of the lower SKUs are the ones that you have. So what are some of the capabilities of Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection? The capability of what they call safe links. And safe links means that if you get a link within an email or an embedded link within a document, Advanced Threat Protection will actually go ahead and behind the scenes see what that link is doing, see where it's going. Is that going to a legitimate website? Is that going to a phishing website? Is that going to a document that is may have malware attached to it? So that's safe links. Safe intelligence is the ability to have advanced threat protection, look at the attachments that you get in your email, or look at the files in SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business, and see those attachments themselves or those documents. Are they legitimate documents or do they contain malware? So that's that spoof intelligence, the ability to have some built-in intelligence around spoofing and sending out emails based on somebody else's ID. And then if something is caught, is captured, the ability to have that information quarantined or that file quarantined, so it's not brought in to affect the company, affect you, your desktop, etc. And advanced phishing capabilities as well. So Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection is kind of the higher level of security. Again, comes with Office 365 E5, but again, if you purchase that separately for the $2 per user per month, you get those features. However, just the basic Exchange Online protection, and if you had an Exchange Online subscription, the only thing that you get out of those is the ability to have messages quarantined. All those other features, safe links, safe attachments, spoof intelligence, and the advanced anti-phishing capabilities are not part of what you get with Exchange Online protection. The only thing you get is just the basic scanning of your emails and the quarantine. So when ATP first came out, and it's been out for a few years now, it was really just tied down to or just a product that was part of the email system and expanded upon Exchange Online protection, and now to be able to do a little bit more with email. But since the end of last year, ATP has now expanded across all of Office 365, and that's just based on this a little bit earlier, but you have the ability to now go ahead and use ATP to scan documents within SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and Microsoft Teams. And the thing that kind of kicks that off, it's just, and we'll go through some of this in the demonstration, but just to understand that when you are utilizing, either SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, or Microsoft Teams, unto itself, it is not out there, ATP is not out there actively scanning all the documents in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. Some action needs to take place in order for that scanning to happen. And so, these are what you see here listed under collaboration signals. So if you're sharing a document using an anonymous link, that will trigger it. Company-wide sharing, explicit sharing, when you're sharing a document to somebody explicitly from within SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business, and guest user activities and file activity within Teams. All those actions, once they do happen, then the document that's affected or the document that's the actions being taken upon will be scanned by the ATP engine, and the information will come back that that is not a healthy file. Some of the other things that are utilized in helping to determine what's a good file or what's not a good file is some of those things that you see there based upon some historical data and things that are within the security intelligence graph that are out there. So you can see from an ATP perspective there in the middle, different various antivirus engines and so forth are utilized to determine whether something is safe or whether something is not safe. And one of the things that's really a big feature of advanced threat protection is, as I talked about earlier with regard to a link, when you send a link into in an email or in an attachment, behind the scenes, advanced threat protection will see where that link is going and determine whether it's good or not. Same thing with an attached file. Behind the scenes, in kind of like a sandbox, or what they'll call a detonation chamber, that document is opened, and just to see if anything happens from the standpoint, if there's a script in that document, some kind of macro that's going to be bad, something to that effect that's going to cause some damage and to the system. So therefore, if it comes back as a positive result, that will be quarantined and blocked from opening. Otherwise, it will be allowed to come through. So if you wanted to go and utilize advanced threat protection within Office 365, there are some steps that you need to go through in order to make that happen. So I'm going to now switch over to my lab environment and show you kind of how Office 365 ATP gets set up and configured. So right now I'm in my Office 365 tenant, and if you go to the admin centers and open up the security and compliance center, you will see security and compliance come up here. We'll wait for that to come up. But down the left-hand side of the menu, you'll see this menu choice called Threat Management. If I expand Threat Management, there are different things that you see here, such as a dashboard, Explorer, Attack Simulator, and so forth. The one we're most interested in, as far as setting up advanced threat protection, is under Policy. We'll click Policy, and here's where you can see all the different pieces as far as what advanced threat protection provides. So you'll see the top three, the anti-phishing, the safe attachments, and safe links. Let's start off by going into safe attachments. Okay, so within safe attachments, one of the things first that you'll see is this checkbox here to turn on advanced threat protection for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the newer features of advanced threat protection that's come out within the past 6 or 7 months or so. So if you wanted to turn that on for those additional workloads, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams, you would check this box. There was also one additional step, which I'll cover in just a moment. But looking in and coming in here, from the standpoint of safe attachments, you will need to create a policy. And we've got a default policy that actually comes with setting this up. And let's just open up with this default policy and take a look at what it is. So with each policy, you get to give it a name and a description. And here's where you select the settings. And when a safe attachment comes in, you get to select, kind of what the action is for this. So you can turn it off, meaning the attachment will not be scanned. You can monitor it, basically saying that you'll allow that attachment to come in, but keep an eye on it to see if anything happens later on when that document is opened. You can actually block it. You can block the current and future emails with and attachments that have detected malware. You can replace it. So if a file such as a Word document comes in and it's found to have a malicious macro, ATP can actually remove that attachment and replace it with just a message saying that the file has been found to have malware. And the one that I have checked already is what they call dynamic delivery, meaning the whole message itself is going to be delivered with the attachments or without the attachments. But what's happening is behind the scenes that the message itself, the body of the message is being delivered, but any attachments that are part of that message are actually going through that detonation chamber and being looked at to see if there's any kind of malware in there. Once that has been determined whether those files are clean or not, if they are clean, that those files get reported back to the email and reattached into the email, all behind the scenes. And then if they're found to contain malware, then the user will be shown a message kind of with the attachment saying that the message or the attachment was found to have malware. And we'll demonstrate some of that. And you have the ability as well through this checkbox here to redirect any attachment that if something is detected in an attachment, you can send it to an additional mailbox. So if there's like a repository mailbox that's set up or an administrator, you can have it set there. So these are the various settings again for safe attachments. Who are these attachments, or who's the safe attachments policy apply to? So you have different choices here as far as who you can apply an attachment safe attachment policy to. For this particular case, we're saying that anybody who receives an email that's part of my domain, and that's the domain that I'm using for this Office 365 tenant. You can also add additional conditions, and some of the conditions is you can have the recipient name is, so if you want to block or have things set from a policy perspective for certain individuals or certain members of a particular group or distribution list, you can have that set here as well. I'm just going to remove that one. And you can also set exceptions. So in this particular case, if I'm doing a safe attachments policy for everybody in the domain, I could also say, well, I just don't want this particular individual's attachment scanned and have that set as an exception. We'll close that. And just wanted to say again, if there's any questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box, and we'll be able to get to those once we are done. So let's come back here to our policy section. And now let's take a look at our safe links policy. All right, so again, we have a policy here, a default policy for safe links. Let's just open up and take a look at what this policy is. So this is a policy that is for any URL that's in an email that somebody sends across the organization. So in this particular case, I've actually pre-populated this particular policy saying that any kind of URL that is pointing to www.google.com will automatically be flagged as a bad URL for my organization. So if there's other URLs, websites that you don't want individuals within your organization going to, and they receive a link to those websites in an email, you can actually utilize this to kind of block those as well. So in this particular case, we've got this one set for Google, and we'll demonstrate that shortly. Settings that apply to content except email, so you can use safe links in Office 365 Pro Plus, meaning the desktop client pieces of that, as well as Office for iOS and Android. So if you set a policy here, you can also have those policies filtered down into those other tools as well. So that's the default policy. And now you can also have policies that apply to specific recipients. So let's take a look at this particular one, this policy. It's got a name, a description, and the settings for this policy. So basically what I'm saying here is we're going to turn this policy on, and we want to check for every URL that comes in. We want to check to make sure that it is a valid URL, and what this does is actually goes against that detonation chamber. So what you're telling the system here is to take any URL that is in an email, put it out to that detonation chamber, see what it's going to happen, see what it does, see what's going to happen, and be able to come back with a response as to whether that's a legitimate URL or not. If you wanted to have a specific exception to that, if you know that there are good URLs that you didn't want to have to go through that detonation chamber, then you can put them in here. In this particular case, I put in Bing as one. So we'll see this in action. And again, just like you saw before with the safe attachments, safe links, you can actually have these similar kinds of filters as far as who that policy applies to. So let's go ahead and cancel this. And then we'll go back to our PowerPoint presentation. And as I mentioned, if aside from checking that box to turn on Office 365 scanning for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, there is also a PowerShell command that you should run, and that is the Set-SPOTenant, and with the parameter for DisallowinfectedFile download. Setting it to true, it shows you what happens there on the left-hand side of the table. The default is false. But if it is true, and that's what I recommend that you guys do, is to basically prevent any kind of action being taken upon a document within OneDrive or within SharePoint that has been identified as being malicious. People can't open it, move it, copy it, share it, etc. So there's a few more things. If you left it at default, there's a few more things people can do with a document that's found to have malicious code in it. But otherwise, the most restrictive is if you set that to true. So again, your recommendation is that you utilize that PowerShell command to set this particular value. So some of the different ways of how OneDrive for Business can be used to have advanced threat protection, identify files in there. So again, you can kind of see down at the bottom underneath that screenshot that what kind of is what's occurring. So if a file sharing event takes place on a particular file in OneDrive for Business, that file now goes out to the detonation chamber to see if there's anything wrong with it, and if it's malicious, it's being blocked. So an example here is an Excel file with a Trojan in it. So again, a file sharing event is what's going to kick off the advanced threat protection engine to go ahead and move that file into the detonation chamber. And again, if it is found to be malicious, it will be blocked. And lastly, as an example here, kind of a PDF with a embedded drive-by link in Microsoft Teams. So a file gets put into Microsoft Teams, that will trigger that file to go into the detonation chamber. And again, if that file is found to be or have malicious code, it will be blocked. With that said, I'd like to move into a demonstration and kind of show you guys how ATP is actually working in Office 365. All right, so I actually, in this particular case, have a Gmail account open. I'm actually going to send an email to somebody in my organization from a different account here, from a Gmail account. So I'm going to compose an email. I'll send it to Lydia. Let's give it a subject of files. Okay. And what I will do is I'm going to attach a file. Let's attach a Word doc. And let's also attach an Excel file. So we've got two attachments here. I'm going to send those to Lydia. Now I can come into my inbox as Lydia, and let's just wait for these to come in and appear, and I can kind of show you, what's going on behind the scenes when ATP is taking a look at those attachments. All right, so here's my email. So you can see right now with my attachments, the ATP scan is in progress. But if I wanted to, I can actually go ahead and preview the documents themselves. And that's one of the great things about that dynamic mode that I showed you when we were setting up safe attachments, is you have the ability to go ahead and preview the attachments if they are Office documents. So if it's a Word document, you can actually preview the content within the Office 365 versions of the web-based versions of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It puts it in such a way that, if there's macros in there, that those macros are not going to run. So you can actually get a preview of those. Kind of give this a refresh, see what's happening. The scan is still taking place. All right, we'll let that run. But in the meantime, kind of want to show you what's kind of going on. Okay, when you open up the email, we're making sure that your attachments are safe. So you can see that the ATP dynamic delivery has brought in my message, so I can see the text of my message. And then if I wanted to, let's just, for example, if I wanted to preview that Excel spreadsheet, that was one of the attachments. Again, it's going to allow me to preview that Excel while it's going ahead and scanning that document. I'll wait for this to come up. In the meantime, I also want to kind of show you, from the standpoint of within OneDrive itself, I've got 3 files that are out there that you can see that little X, that little shield that's next to it. Those are files that I've preloaded into this demo, and knowing that each of those has some kind of malicious code in it. I've got a PowerPoint file, I've got an Excel file, and I've got a Word doc. All 3 of those documents, I've set some kind of sharing on those. You can see here, as far as the sharing, I've shared those either within the organization or the specific individuals. And as I mentioned earlier, when we're going through what kind of triggers within SharePoint or within OneDrive, the ATP engine to kind of look at those documents, it is a sharing event. So right here, this notes from meeting staff is just one of the clean documents that's out there. If I click that, you can kind of see I've got various actions along the top here that I could take on that document. Based upon the fact that this document is a document that is found to have some kind of malicious code, I don't have those actions. All I have is delete. And that's based upon the fact that I've set that policy using that PowerShell command in SharePoint Online to be able to block any action except the ability to delete. Even if you didn't do that, the default would have limited actions. You wouldn't be able to download it, you wouldn't be able to share it, etc. Same thing with all these. And again, same thing that was OneDrive, same thing occurs within SharePoint Online. So if I highlight this, you can see same actions. And if I come on to highlight the one that has been found to be malicious, that will have that. Let me go back to our message first and kind of see what's going on here. You can see now that our ATP engine has found that there are unsafe attachments, and those attachments have been blocked. So this is the message that you will see when an unsafe attachment comes through. And then again, from an unsafe attachment perspective, I've uploaded what's known to be a bad PDF into this Teams site. If I go over to files, anytime you attach a file to a conversation within Teams, it comes into the files area within Teams. If I click it, that document, if I would go ahead and open it, actually, let's close this here. If I go to open online, you come and see that a virus has been found in this particular document. Let's go back to our Gmail and let's send another email to Lydia. I'm going to cheat here. Copy that, paste that here, and make that a link. Oops. Make that to Google. I gotta change that. And lastly, bad site. Copy that one in there. And let's send this to Lydia. And we'll go back to our email system, wait for that to come through. And we'll show you what happens with regards to those links based upon the actions and those policies that I have set in the Advanced Threat Protection Safe links. Close these windows here. Wait for this to come through. Of course, every time during a demo, it goes slow. All right, here we go. So I've got my 3 links here. So let's click the Google link and see what happens. So as we put in the policy to block any attachment or any link that goes to Google, you can see that this website was blocked based upon our URL policy within the organization. Come back to the email. Let's click Bing. Everything works as it should because we put Bing on the safe list. And then lastly, first off, as you can see, when I'm hovering it, if you look down to the lower left-hand portion, you can see that that URL is actually wrapped around NAO1.safelinks. So this is the actual ATP SafeLinks engines that's actually setting this up. So Bing doesn't have one because we said not to. And here's one for the bad site. So again, we're going to check to see what happens here. And this website has been classified as malicious. So somewhere along the way, the Microsoft Security Intelligence Graph has determined that that particular website is bad. So when it goes and gets detonated, that particular file or that particular URL is identified as being a bad site, and you do not get to go to it by going on here. Certainly a person has an option to continue it, but the first stage is to give them this warning of what is happening. So let's pop back into our presentation as we're coming down to the end here. Just wanted to show you some resources that are available, that are out there, some websites that show some things and some more detailed descriptions of the service of advanced threat protection, some blogs that are out there, and some more information around safe attachments and safe links at these particular URLs. There's a really good video that's out there on advanced threat protection for Office 365, that link, as well as a presentation from last year at the Microsoft Ignite conference that did take a look at. And a real good blog post that talks about all the different policies and all the different configurations and settings you can set for these various policies. So I would definitely recommend that. With that, I thank everybody for their time, and Noor, I'll turn it back over to you and let me know if there's any questions from our guests.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the quick session and also a quick demo. It really helps in keeping our files safe. So I know we are over time, but I quickly would like to take a couple of questions from the audience. So one of the questions is there anything required on premises for ATP to be taken care of?
No, there actually is not. Everything with regards to ATP is cloud-based, so you utilize the capabilities of what ATP provides via your subscription to Office 365, and there is nothing that needs to be installed on a desktop client. There is a desktop version, though, of what they call Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is built in as part of which you can add on to Windows 10. And that's more of like a desktop version of antivirus and advanced threat protection that could be handled on the desktop. But from an Office 365 ATP, no, nothing on premises.
Thanks, Jeff. One more question is, can ATP be used with on-premises Exchange server?
Yes, that's a great question. So the biggest bang for your buck as far as all the benefits that you can get from Office 365 ATP is really when you're using cloud-based or web-based mailboxes. However, if you are using Exchange on premises, you do have the ability to have some of those capabilities, in particular around the ATP safe attachments and the safe links, to be able to utilize the ATP engine in the cloud, assuming you have an Office 365 subscription that has it, with your on-prem Exchange mailbox. That work with the standalone Exchange on premises, as well as if you are in hybrid mode as well. So if you have a mix of Exchange Online and an Exchange on-prem mailboxes as well. So there are definitely some capabilities and some features that you can use in those scenarios as well.
Great. Thanks, Jeff, for taking up those questions. Folks, if there are any additional questions, please drop us a note at marketing@winwire.com, and we'll take those questions offline. Again, thanks for joining this session. Hope you found it very informative and useful. Looking forward to the next session. Jeff, thanks for quickly walking us through this wonderful session on Office 365. Have a good day.
Thanks, Noor. Thank you, everybody.